Don't continue by inertia. If you've gotten this far, it's not because you were looking for something, but because something found you. Before you can even rationalize it, your attention is hooked. And this only happens when a message directly connects with the way your mind truly works. At this very moment, as you listen, something is happening inside you. Perhaps a voice is commenting on what you're hearing. Perhaps images are emerging. Perhaps there's nothing definite but a silent, immediate understanding that needs no words. Whatever you're experiencing right now is not random, and above all, it's not universal. And this is one of the most shocking truths about the human mind. Most people live their entire lives without ever asking themselves how they think. Not what they think, but how their thoughts take shape. We grow up believing that thinking means talking inside our heads, as if everyone has the same internal dialogue. But that's not the case. It never has been. Inside every human being exists a private, invisible mental reality, profoundly different from that of everyone else. Some minds function like a continuous narrative, a voice that accompanies every gesture, every choice, every memory, a voice that analyzes, judges, anticipates, corrects. This voice can be useful, but it can also become a prison because it tends to repeat itself, to ruminate, to create stories that seem real only because they're repeated long enough. Other minds almost never speak. They think in images. Scenes appear like photographs, like film fragments, like visual simulations. For these people, remembering means reviewing, and imagining means literally seeing. And they often struggle to put into words what's happening inside them, because their thoughts don't originate verbally. And then there are still different minds, silent minds, people who don't hear a constant internal voice, don't see clear images, yet they know, they understand without explaining, they decide without sentences, they sense an internal direction that needs no words. And they often discover this difference very late in life when they realize that expressions like the voice in their head weren't a metaphor. These differences aren't minor details. They're profound structures. Because the way you think determines the way you live. It determines whether you get trapped in thoughts or whether you can let them pass. It determines whether you relive the past or observe it. It determines whether you imagine the future as a scene or as an abstract concept. Many states we call anxiety, stress, and confusion arise not from events, but from the way the mind processes them internally. A verbal mind tends to repeat. A visual mind tends to relive. A sensory mind tends to react. Without awareness, each of these modalities can become an invisible cage. And the most surprising thing is that no one teaches us to observe our thinking. We learn what to think, what to believe, what to desire. But we almost never learn to recognize the process that generates all this. So we end up completely identifying with the mind, without ever questioning its mechanism. Yet a tiny change is enough. You don't need to control your thoughts, you don't need to eliminate them. Just start noticing them. Notice how they come, in what form, how long they last, how they go away. The moment you observe the thought, you cease to be completely within it. And this creates a space, a subtle but very powerful space, the space of the observer. In that space, the mind continues to function, but it no longer automatically pulls you along. Images appear and disappear, voices speak and then fall silent, sensations emerge and dissolve, and you remain present, aware. This doesn't mean becoming detached from life. It means being less of a prisoner of your own mental interpretation. Because what you experience is never the world itself, but the filter through which you perceive it. A continuous, dynamic, personal construction. Everyone you meet is living a private mental simulation, an internal universe you can never see directly. And from that universe arise words, actions, reactions, misunderstandings, and profound connections. Understanding this changes the way you look at yourself and others. When you begin to recognize your mental style, you stop judging yourself for how you react. You begin to understand yourself. And by understanding yourself, you also begin to understand others. Not because you become indulgent, but because you become clear-headed. Awareness doesn't eliminate problems. It changes your relationship with them. It allows you to see when your mind is creating a useless story, when it's repeating an old pattern, when it's confusing a thought with truth. And the more you observe, the more evident it becomes that beneath the mental noise lies something stable, silent, present. A part of you that doesn't speak, doesn't judge, doesn't comment, a presence that has always been there, but you've rarely listened to. You don't have to get anywhere. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to stop completely identifying with the flow of thoughts. Because you are not the voice, you are not the image, you are not the sensation. You are what perceives them. And this realization, once seen, is never lost. You can distract yourself, you can forget, but something inside you will always know that there is a space of freedom between you and your mind. Every time you return to observation, you return home. Every time you stop identifying, you regain space. Every time you see thought for what it is, you regain presence. And as you continue to listen, doing nothing, seeking nothing, you can allow yourself to simply remain in this space. A space that doesn't demand answers, doesn't demand action, doesn't demand immediate change. A space that exists before words, before images, before even thoughts. Perhaps you're starting to notice that the mind, when unattended, slows down on its own. Not because it's forced, but because it no longer needs to race. Thoughts may still emerge, but now they seem more distant, less urgent, less personal, like clouds drifting across the sky without changing the sky itself. And in this wider silence, something becomes clear without being explained. Not as a sentence, not as a concept, but as a subtle understanding. The understanding that you have never been the noise of the mind. You have always been what listens to it. You have always been present, even when you were distracted, even when you were confused, even when you thought you were lost. This presence doesn't need to be held. You don't have to forcefully remind yourself of it. It returns every time you stop completely identifying with what's going on in your mind. It returns every time you observe instead of reacting. It returns every time you let be. And maybe now you can just stay here for a moment longer, without labels, without judgment, without trying to understand. Letting thought do what it does, and letting awareness remain what it is. When you return to your activities, when this video ends, your mind will resume its flow. And that's natural, but something will be different, even if you can't say what. Because once you've glimpsed the space between you and your thoughts, that space never completely disappears. You can return to it at any time. With a breath, with an observation, with a moment of silent attention. And now there's nothing else to do. You can just stay. Or let go. Knowing that what truly matters has never needed words to exist. And maybe, for the first time, you begin to live not only inside your mind, but beyond your mind,